Let's jump into some fun stuff here. Ivermectin.
We've actually published a couple papers. They were more theoretical on, let's just say, antiviral effects of ivermectin. It kind of proved our theory wrong.
It feels like seed oils is like the number one thing that is being attacked or talked about. Like, is that actually the thing that is the worst, or is there something else potentially?
I think how we're consuming seed oils in this country is a very big problem.
You're going on record and saying Cheetos is not a health food.
Correct. You can quote me on that.
Dr. James, welcome to the podcast. The doctor and the nurse. You could be the doctor on the show. Like, maybe so. Maybe you just, join the team. Quit all you're doing because, it's not like you're doing much, and just join on the team. So let's just go super quick, hyper speed background. Your social media is phenomenal. I think, like, of all the people that I know, the most reposts, reshares I ever see is you. And I was like, man, who is this guy? For the longest time, like, is this just like a mythological figure out there? Because it's so good. It's so consistent. Did you set out on this of like, hey, I want to grow this social media? Or was it just kind of a byproduct of who you are and, what you're passionate about?
No, it was totally unintentional, to be honest.
I love it.
I sort of started out just kind of publishing books and then content. And so it was never like, let me grow my social. Like, this is what I want to do. It really wasn't kind of like on my mind. It was more actually using that to get my academic publications recognized and books.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because I think the greatest people are the ones who do it for the art. I call it the art over the eyes. You either manufacture it and you try so hard, or you just do it because you're passionate about it. And Huberman's been a good friend of mine for a long time before he was doing a podcast. And that's what he was talking about. He's like, he didn't set out to just, make this massive podcast. He just loved it. He was passionate about it and interested in it. So in your background and writing books and being a doctor and cardiovascular, is that your focus?
Yeah. So for the past 10 years, I was a cardiovascular research scientist at St. Luke's Mid-America Heart Institute. And so through that affiliation, I published almost 300 academic papers, and I was the associate editor of the UK's largest open access cardiology journal called BMJ Open Heart. And yeah, a lot of the focus was on cardiovascular health, but a lot of it is really focused on nutrition and supplementation too.
I love it. Let's jump into some fun stuff here. So listening to Rogan and Mel Gibson, and actually being a believer of this for a long time, to be honest, my wife and I, ivermectin, how does this come into play in cardiovascular health, even cancer, as Mel Gibson was talking about? Do you think this is one of those things like, hey, I put in heavy quotes, of trying to keep under the wraps, or is it something that's legitimate that people should be looking into?
It's a great question. We've actually published a couple papers. They were more theoretical on, let's just say, antiviral effects of ivermectin. But if you actually look at, there's been many, many clinical studies now actually testing ivermectin, and it doesn't seem to actually be beneficial in COVID. Actually, metformin, ironically, seems to have more evidence, which is, typically used for insulin resistance. So if you ever want to learn about a topic, go to PubMed. Okay, so PubMed houses all the medical journals that have an impact factor. So like good medical journals with all the publications. You type in a search term on PubMed, type in ivermectin and whatever you want to research on. Filter it by clinical trial. It'll bring up every single clinical trial that's ever been done on ivermectin. You can quickly see it kind of proved our theory wrong. I'm fine with that, right? I did a couple of publications that I thought that ivermectin may actually have some benefits through mechanistic actions. And then if you look at, there's been at least 4 or 5 clinical studies, and they all showed not harm, but just real no benefit. So cancer, I don't know. I don't think there's been a single study too on ivermectin cancer. Yeah. Doesn't mean that it's not potentially beneficial. Yeah. But yeah, that's just kind of my high level talk on ivermectin.
Yeah, that's cool. It's kind of this, it's polarizing, right? Like some people are all in, some people like it doesn't do anything, it's just for horses. Mel Gibson's talking about it, how it's saving people from like recovering them from cancer. I don't know. I think there needs to be more done on that. I think there should be something that is just like, here's the benefits of it. This is going to sound crazy. I actually I had I don't know if it was eczema or just some red, stuff. And I started putting topical ivermectin on my face and it cleared it up in over 2 nights. Crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Something there.
You got to test everything, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing is, when you hear a celebrity say this cured this, well, you're not getting the full picture. They weren't just taking ivermectin, right? They were probably taking many other things. So it's hard to pinpoint. I'm not saying that whatever Mel Gibson said didn't necessarily happen, right? But what actually that person took in conjunction with ivermectin is probably a lot more than what is being what we're being led to kind of think.
Good point. Ton of variables, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so jumping into the Maha Party, the Make America Healthy Again, it feels like, and I love all those people, great people. It feels like seed oils is the number one thing that is being attacked or talked about. Does this restaurant have it? Does this not? What are they doing? They're, pulling the rug over our eyes. Do you think seed oils is that actual, that's the dark evil? You know what I mean? Is it that, sometimes when people go so far one way, you got to stop and think of is that actually the thing that is the worst? Or is there something else potentially behind the scenes?
I think how we're consuming seed oils in this country is a very big problem.
That's a good point.
There's differences between cold pressed that you're kind of just putting a little bit on a salad versus industrial oxidized seed oils that you're cooking with at a high heat. 2 different effects, right? One probably won't have that much harm, if not maybe even some benefit. Whereas the industrial seed oils, how we extract them with high heat, with hexane, they're already oxidized before we even consume them. Then you cook them and that further oxidizes, and then you consume them and it further oxidizes in the acidity of your stomach. So yes, industrial seed oils are used in the United States for cooking. And to my opinion, it's a huge driver. It makes up 20% of our total caloric intake too. So just on a gram basis, we're consuming a lot of these seed oils as well. And our actual adipose tissue stores have dramatically increased. There's some good data on that from, let's say, 1900 to now. Linoleic acid, omega-6 has really gone up in our body.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying with that. What do you think there's anything else that is being missed that should be more of a hyper focus?
Just processed foods in general, right? Hyper palatable processed foods. So there's more to, let's say, a donut than just seed oils, right? There's carbs, there's trans fats. I think everything, Cheetos, right? Chips, all that stuff is really the main, seed oils come in this package of all these highly processed foods. Yeah,
totally. So you're saying you're going on record and saying Cheetos is not a health food.
Correct. You can quote me on that.
What do you think what's your take on the if it fits your macros then? Is that something that is just outside external appearance versus internal appearance? That's the, if you hit your carbs, your proteins, your fats, it doesn't matter what you're putting in, each calorie is a calorie. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. No. Obviously a calorie is not a calorie, right? So you can take calories from broccoli or you can take calories from M&Ms. If you consume 2,000 calories of those, can have completely 2 different effects on your body, right? And of course, it's really the micros that are driving everything, metabolism, hormones, how we store fat is driven by the micros. So it takes 22 micronutrients to actually turn the food that you eat, the macros, into energy. Whoa. So you can hit all the macros you want, but if you're not getting all the good micros, you're not going to produce ATP that well. You're not going to produce hormones. Insulin levels could increase, et cetera.
Oh, well, that's interesting. What are some of those major micros that need to be focused on? I think this is a thing not a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds stupid, but every single one of them nowadays, right? But if you want me to go kind of down, the first 2 that come to mind are always vitamin B1 and magnesium, because magnesium is required to activate B1, and we need both to metabolize carbohydrates and proteins and fats, to be fair. And so many things deplete us of magnesium and vitamin B1. So things like coffee will break down B1. You want to space out B vitamins away from coffee or tea by about 2 to 3 hours because they can break down the vitamins and then decrease their absorption. Copper is another mineral that most of us aren't getting. It's the most depleted mineral actually in crops is copper. And you only get copper in a few different foods like oysters, shellfish, and liver. Most people aren't consuming those. So copper is another kind of missing mineral. But I mean, manganese is another one that a lot of people aren't getting, and that's good for blood glucose. Here's what's interesting. So a lot of us suffer from type 2 diabetes. And we've known since about 1950 that if you give someone all the vitamins and minerals, but you just withhold vitamin B1, that will induce diabetic glucose curves within 2 or 3 months. So you can induce diabetes simply by withholding one vitamin B1. And you can also do that by withholding magnesium, vitamin C, chromium. So all these things kind of play an effect.
That's super interesting, man. I think that's a really cool thing. I don't think many people talk about this type of stuff. So thank you for shedding that knowledge on it. To that point of like the things that we need, is there something else maybe that people aren't talking about? I know like protein kind of seems to be the thing. Is that the thing of the future where people are going to be focusing more on how do I get the ample amount of protein based on a lot of people are now taking Ozempic shots and different weight loss shots. So they're suppressing their appetite, but they still need the protein. Like, what do you see in terms of the future to come? Because there was always, how it goes in trends, right? Like there's collagen or there's adaptogens, and now it seems protein is really hot and heavy.
Yeah, it is. Protein, and particularly animal protein, because animal foods are so great because they give you much more bioavailable nutrients, right? You get the vitamin K2, and you get the preformed vitamin A versus trying to convert beta carotene to vitamin A in plants, which, not many people convert very well. And so, animal foods, consuming those is very important for the nutrients because we can become quickly depleted in vitamins and minerals. So people can talk about, well, red meat is going to, decrease your longevity, blah, 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 right? That's theoretical, but right away, you need those nutrients though, because if you don't get those nutrients, you can start having a lot of, cognitive things with decrease in B12 very quickly. So it's like, you don't want to sacrifice your health now to maybe live longer, which I honestly don't even think is true. But what I think is the future is actually offsetting the acid load from animal protein. So it's one of the few topics that I'm kind of an expert on. I've published a few papers on. Not a lot of people actually know about. Sort of when you consume animal protein, it brings sulfuric acid into the body, and it does bring an acid load. So sodium bicarbonate, a lot of athletes will take to offset the acidosis of anaerobic exercise. But I actually take sodium potassium bicarbonate to offset the acid load from animal protein that I consume. And we used to get a lot of bicarbonate because we used to consume the blood, the interstitial fluid, and fresh meat, which has a lot more bicarbonate in it than muscle meat that's now hung for 2 to 3 weeks. So we're not consuming a traditional carnivore animal-based diet anymore. We're consuming something completely lacking in bicarbonate.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, I did not know that. So, I mean, meat that's frozen that you get from Trader Joe's, that might be high quality meat. It's not even close to what it would be if it was like 2 weeks to the kill of an animal.
Correct. So basically, when an animal dies, you have a lack of blood flow to the muscle. That causes anaerobic metabolism, similar to what happens when we vigorously exercise. And that produces lactic acid, lactate, and hydrogen ions. It's the hydrogen ions that make that meat more acidic and the fluids more acidic. And so if you don't consume fresh meat, which we no longer do, but we used to, you are getting a much depleted bicarbonate meat in blood, et cetera.
Wow. Man, that's really interesting. So I think there needs to be more done on that too. I mean, maybe I just need to find a friend who can hunt me food, because I know in Los Angeles that might be a little bit tough, but we'll figure that out.
There you go.
Dr. James, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. Like, you are the best at, obviously over 300 papers, probably even more. And you're able to bring that high level knowledge back to the simple. And I think the simple is where people learn. It's probably why you've become just, a massive worldwide followed leading mind in this too. And I think your consistency in giving people the simple steps, but then you can go so deep. Do you think in terms of, and here's something that has always, bewildered me in the terms of publication, research, do you think there's a thing that is, people will do research, right? They set out, they get funded, they set out on this mission, and then they bend the research to be able to fit what the narrative they already wanted to have says. Like, just knowing human psychology and human nature, it feels like there's probably a lot of that. Am I right?
For sure. I think it has a lot to do with ignoring opposing evidence. And so I don't have like any skin in this game. Like, I want to live long personally. So from a selfish reason, I'm like, I don't have a camp. I'm not a carnivore. I'm not, a vegan. I just want to know what's the best diet so I can live long and my followers can live long. And so I don't try to ignore any evidence, which actually, it was hard because I had originally researched a ton of, data on fiber, et cetera. And then I went on the high fiber diet and it didn't work really for me. And so, you got to test these things out too. And same with animal foods. Like, I didn't necessarily want to find the research that back in 1920, when Stephenson and Anderson did their metabolic wart study, only eating animal foods for a year, that they went into negative calcium balance due to the acid load. But I found that study. And then I was like, wait, let me research and find all the studies, posted it on YouTube, and said, okay, there are consequences to only eating animal foods. You need to offset that acid load. So I'm always trying to, find those little nuances, because I think those nuances are really important and they're never talked about.
Dude, that's really good. And credit to you for being able to say, like, hey, this is what I wanted to have happen, but here's the actual research. And you're okay with being like, well, maybe I wasn't right seeking out on that. I think that is the fun of life, right? The continued growth of knowledge and just figuring things out more and more. Are there any, if you're going to say like, hey, 3 main things that you're like, this is, and when you talk about living for a long time in a healthy way, are there a few things that you focus on intently daily? Not Brian Johnson's 8,000 things in a blueprint, but anything that you think are like staples that aren't necessarily like the obvious staples, I guess.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I was going to give some of the obvious ones, right?
Sleep.
Maybe we'll start with that.
The obvious are great, though. You can give the obvious, and then while you're giving them, I'm sure those thoughts will come up to you.
Yeah. So the obvious would be like, right, hitting a good amount of protein, taking collagen, because we don't produce, an optimal amount without getting it. Getting the micros, like, so I try to have balanced diet. And when I say balanced diet, I mean, I try to eat some pasture raised eggs, like at least 3, because there's certain nutrients in eggs, lutein, zeaxanthin, difficult to get in other, foods. I try to eat some red meat every day, like maybe at least 4 ounces, to try to get the B12 and the iron I need. So I actually select foods based on the nutrients that I know I'm not going to get in certain other foods. And so, I do have a little bit of dairy for calcium. So I try to get that. So I select my diet based on the nutrients that each food provides. That's kind of obvious, but kind of not. Most people just kind of eat whatever they like, right? Sunlight is super important. Getting morning sunlight to help set your circadian rhythm. So that's kind of becoming mainstream, but some people still don't know this, that if you don't, like, let's say, open the blinds or get outside, and even on a cloudy day, it's 3 times more bright than indoor lighting. And that morning sunlight allows you to release melatonin quicker and more vigorously at night. So getting sunlight in the morning helps you sleep at night. That's kind of something I try to always keep in mind. Hydrating with salt, electrolytes, and water first thing in the morning too. Very important, because you've gone 8 hours not consuming any fluids. You lose about 500 milligrams of sodium in the urine overnight. So getting that back, getting that hydration is very important for focus, energy, etc.
Oh, those are really good. I feel good about myself. I'm hitting all of those. Thank you, man. Awesome. Hey, so what's coming next for you, Dr. James? You're a leader in this whole health, wellness, nutrition. I mean, the focus is just going to be so much more intently for people to understand and have knowledge of how to live better. And it's so crazy though, right? Like, and I always have this thing I say, like, I forgive ignorance, meaning if people don't know, they just don't know. And you can't hate on them for that. But once people know, and I think the eyes are being opened here and will continue to be, like, what do you think the next things are coming on, or what are the next things you're working on that is really exciting you in this health wellness world?
Yeah, well, working on longevity a little bit more. So different supplements that help with longevity. So there's a lot of, I've published a lot of papers on this, and I've published a lot of papers on nutrition, and I'm just starting to kind of put it out in a way, showing it on like a whiteboard of like actually how these things work. And so that's kind of what I'm most excited about, is kind of like dumbing it down a little bit and visually showing how these things actually work, I think is super compelling and easy for my audience to then understand.
Man, phenomenal. Well, you're the best follow on social media. I'll give you that for sure. And you're just super knowledgeable, man. It's fun to dive deep on these. Could probably ask you a zillion more questions, and maybe we'll do that sometime when we're live on the court in Rochester, New York. Thank you, Dr. James. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, David.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more where it came from. You can go find another episode just like it right here. Come on. You can click it. You know you want to.